if I look at this, look at this first one right here. What I have is I have the question saying what, or the graph of the function, the general forms here. What do we know about the values of a, b, and c? Well, we know that it's going to open up. It opens up, so a is going to be positive. We know b is 0 because the axis of symmetry is right on 0 right there, so that means that it doesn't move right or left at all. And then we also know that c is -4 because c is always the y-intercept. Moving on. I want to find the value of k so that has one real number solution. That has to do with the discriminant. The discriminant is right here, square root of b squared minus 4ac. That's part of the quadratic formula. That would be the discriminant. And the discriminant would have to be 0 because that would make one real number solution. If it was positive, it would make two real numbers. If it was negative, it would make it no real number solution. So anyways, I solved it out here. I just plugged k, 12, and -4 into a, b, and c respectively there, and then solved it out to get k equals -9. And then if I look at the next one, which graph of the equation is a parabola with two x-intercepts and a minimum value? So this would be, you'd have options for graphs to look at and things that happen to the graphs. What I'm looking for is I'm looking for a being positive, so it opens up, and I'm also looking for c being negative because I know that my y-intercept is going to be below the x-axis. If you look, here's a good example of one right here. This would be the c value is, or a value is positive, it opens up, and c value is negative, so that's what we're looking for there. Moving on to the next one. What is true about this graph? Well, the vertex is right here in the middle. A lot of people would mess this up. This is at 0, 3, not 3, 0. So it's at 0, 3, not 3, 0. So we know the vertex is x equals 0, y equals 3. And it's also a maximum because it opens down. And then also the axis of symmetry, which cuts it in half. And it's nice here, it tells you right there, there's a y. So it's the y-intercept, or y-axis is the axis of symmetry. Moving on. If I solve this out, again, I kind of worked it out nicely. I substituted. I think that's the easiest way to do it. So when you get to other ones like this, just substitute them in and solve it just like a regular quadratic. And that's what I did right here. This next one here, is it linear, quadratic, or exponential? It's not linear because it's not a line. You guys all can see that. It might look like it's half of a quadratic because it could go to the other side. So what I did is I just said, well, if it's a quadratic, let's just try something. So if I were to plug in 0 here, I would get 1, which that works out nice. If I plug in 1, I would get 2, so that works out nice too. But everything after that doesn't work out. If it's doubling, it's not going to be a quadratic. If you notice, it's going from 1 to 2 to 4 to 8. So this is actually not quadratic at all. It's actually exponential, which that would be my answer. Moving on, I solved the next one here. You guys can look at that and look through there. All I did was I plugged 3 in for 0 right here and solved it out to get a little over 2 seconds. After that, the next one here, I solved just like I would regular. I added the 370 over, divided by 8, and then square rooted both sides. On this one, I used the quadratic formula. Hopefully all of you remember that or have it written down somewhere close. And I solved it out on here with that. So if I look at the next one, Noah, how did you do the last one? Here. Did you use quadratic formula? Good. All right. Well, I didn't have to. I didn't have to use quadratic formula, but I did because I know a lot of people would. A lot of people would use quadratic formula anytime they see a number in front of the x squared, and that's okay. And what I get down here is I get 2 and -1/3. Here I factored. I got one answer, -5. I move down. This is asking me the number of real solutions, which has to do with the discriminant again. It wouldn't be equal to 0. But the discriminant here is going to be a negative underneath the radical. So when it's a negative under the radical, it's actually no real solutions. Moving on, let's talk about Jorge painting a mural. Here I put W equals X and length equals 2X minus 2 because It says the length is 2 feet less than twice its width. If you look at that. And then I solved it out to get 12 feet and 22 feet. If you notice, it's not 12 and 11. It's not 12 and 11 because you can't have negative 11 feet. You can only have a positive 12 feet. So that's why I only use that one right there. Again, here's another one that I solved. Subtracted the 2x over, canceled it out. And then I added 324, divided by, or didn't divide by anything, sorry. Then I square root of both sides. Another one, same thing. Similar, I solved my factoring. Here I solved my factoring again. Solved my factoring again. But now, not this one, but this one right here, what I did is I divided by 2 first to make it look easier. A lot of people necessarily wouldn't do that, and that's okay. But I divided it by 2 to make it factor easily. Again, I factored here. The last few, hopefully I can get to them before it gets too long. It says graph the equation. Now, when I want to graph this, I want to find the axis of symmetry first. Once I find the axis of symmetry, I plug it in to find my vertex. And then my y-intercept is always my c, and then the other point is a reflection over my vertex. Now, I graphed it right here. Oh, no, sorry, maybe. Yep, right here, just to show you where my vertex is here, my y-intercept is there, and then if I reflect this over, if you look, I went 2.5 to here, so I want to go 2.5 the other way, so if I look here, it's 5, 1 is my other point, and that's the other point I have as well. So then those are the 3 points, and then you just connect them with the u. Graphing these two, honestly, this is a free graphing calculator app. If you, not app, sorry, if you use this as another tab during your test, it's okay. I would personally. Here's my negative x squared minus 1. It looks like that. Pretty easy choice. And then my other one would be 3 over 2 x squared. If you look, what I would look for here is I would zoom in a little bit and notice that at 1, it's on the left side of it, not on the right side of it. So that's a big hint for you, for those of you that are watching. And then the last couple, I'm going to go over that one last. Here is a nice equation that you do x times x plus 2 because I'm finding area, so I'm multiplying the dimensions, and then I use quadratic formula to end up getting 10.87. Where 10.87 it says right on the nearest meter, so that would be 11, sorry, and then I would add 2 to get 13. Here, if I look at the graph, what do I know about A, B, and C? I know A is positive because it opens up. I know C is 2 because it crosses right there. And then I know B is not 0 because it's not on the y-axis. But it's to the right, so I know B must be negative. Not positive, negative. Then finally right here, almost finally, sorry. Here is completing the square. If you look, what they did here is they left out an x first of all, but then they divided by 2, or divided by 3. I divided this by 3 and this by 3 to get x squared and negative 8x. So to find out what r is, I take half of 8 and then square it. Well, half of 8 is 4. 4 squared is 16, so that's what I get for r. I get 16 for r. And then for s, I then multiply r and 3 to find out what s is. So that would be what s is. And then the last one here is kind of, honestly, I would say the hardest one, because I probably have a lot of kids that couldn't figure this one out, especially even Algebra 2 or Calc kids. This is the graph of negative f of x. This is a really high-level question. So if you look, what I did is I typed in what I thought it might look like. And obviously I've been doing this for a long time, so I kind of knew. And then I took the negative of that. The negative flips it this way. Now, if you take the negative away, what you get is this whole thing flipped upside down. It's flipping the whole graph. Now, if I take that graph and then I make an x negative, what it's going to do is it's going to flip this over to the other side, like that. Well, if I do both, if I flip it this way and I flip it over the other way, it's going to end up in this quadrant over here. So that would be, it'd almost be like flipping it up and then flipping it over. So guys, I hope that helps, and I hope you look at it, but if not, it's all good. Love you guys, miss you guys, see ya.